Steel Curtain Network.
Por Jorgito! Down! Najee Harris! DJ Watt!
Pittsburgh Steeler fans, welcome to a Steel Curtain Network post-game show. This is not Jeff Hartman. This is Dave Schofield, but we do have a triumphant trio today because with me is Bryan Anthony Davis. How are you doing, Bryan?
You sure you're not Jeff Hartman?
I'm trying. Well, I think I'm Dave Schofield and Jeff Hartman today because I've had to do his stuff as well. But joining us, no, this is not a Tuesday night. It's not 9 p.m., but he can go ahead and breathe if he wants to. Big Brosco, how's it going?
We just love the smell of 3-0.
Yeah. Don't worry, you'll still be breathing on Tuesday night. For those of you that don't join us on the Scobro Show, what are you waiting for? So here we go. As Jeff always starts it off, we go with knee-jerk reactions. Bryan, what was your knee-jerk reaction to this Steelers 20-10 victory over the Los Angeles Chargers at Acrisure Stadium for the Steelers home opener in Week 3 to push their record to 3-0?
If I have to go knee-jerk here, I'm going to say that the Steelers are for real. And the reason I'm going to say they're for real is because this was a test, finally. This was a good team coming in, and everybody knew this was a good team coming in. Was it a banged-up Justin Herbert? Absolutely. But they had the best running game in the league, and we're going to talk about it when we talk about stats, but they stymied Dobbins. I didn't even hear Gus Edwards' name called. And they were coming in as just the team as far as it goes when it comes to running the ball, and the Steelers aren't exactly slouches running the ball. But Mike Tomlin, if you had a chance to listen to his press conference, he said styles bring on fights, and that's exactly what they had. They had a fight, and the Steelers won. Hence the fact, not just did they win the game, they won the fight. And when you win the fight, and anytime you beat a guy named Harbaugh, you beat a good coach. They might be jerks, but they're good coaches. And I loved watching the start of this game and watching how prepared and how it was a Harbaugh style game and how they were ready and they were you could tell they were coached very well coming into this game, but the Steelers were able to roll with those punches and win. So that tells me that warts and all, 3-0 means you are for real. You're just a blue collar for real.
I thought it was pimples. I thought you made the analogy of it was pimples because it could get cleaned up. But yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You better say that because I even referenced it then on the Scobro Show. You know, I referenced the pimple reference. So,
yeah. So, Rich, while you're at it, give us your knee-jerk, not just what you put in the article. Give us your just overall knee-jerk reaction.
Okay, my overall knee-jerk reaction, though I am going to start with something that I did put in the article. Okay, if you did not get the chance to go over to the Steel Curtain Network and see the staff prediction article, I want you to know one person nailed it. And that
you won the right to come on this show because you got the score exactly right.
Yeah,
that's what ended up happening. That's why you're here.
Here were my couple knee jerks. So we've seen it I've seen something I really liked in games 1 and 3 from the Steelers, and that was the halftime adjustments, both offensively and defensively, that the team made that seemed to just work.
Yeah.
You have to give some kudos to the coaching staff for seeing and making those adjustments. I think part of the reason you didn't see those adjustments in week 2 was because of how much of a lead the Steelers held and going in at the half, and they were just like, you know what, we're just going to try to grind out the clock in the second half. This week, both sides of the ball had to come out and play in the second half, and boy, did they ever come out in the second half.
Oh, yes, and we'll get to that, especially on the defensive side. We'll get there eventually, but we'll start off with the offense. But before we do, I'm going to give a quick knee-jerk reaction, and it really was – I came into this one, and I admit, now, when I placed my wagers on the game, it was on the Steelers. But in the staff article, I actually picked the Chargers because I wasn't convinced the Steelers offense could step up and put points to the board against a quality defense. And I was hopeful, but I just wasn't sure enough to pull the trigger. And my goodness, did they do it? Because if you look at it, the second half possessions Now, granted, one of them said interception, unfortunately, but the end of the second half interceptions, the second half possessions for the Steelers, none of them ended with the word that every second half possession ended with the Chargers, and that was the word punt. The Steelers did not punt in the second half, and that's all that the Chargers did. So we're going to go ahead and do what we normally do. I will do my best Jeff Hartman impersonation. I wish I was a little bit better at impersonating him on the golf course, but unfortunately that's not the case. So we're going to dive into the offense. Let's go ahead, and we're going to start right away with the passing game. Justin Fields, he was 25 of 32 for 245 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, a 96.0 rating. That we see, he was sacked twice for minus 13 yards. We could also throw in, he didn't really rush the ball very much. It was 6 for 6 yards, but 2 of them were kneel downs at the end of the game for -1 each. So we'll start with Bryan. What was your overall impersonation with the Steelers passing game, particularly with Justin Fields and with throwing the football?
My biggest problem with Justin Fields wasn't Justin Fields. It was the protection he was getting early, and we're going to talk about the line earlier, but he had nowhere to go, and Fields cannot pass the football when he's running for his life, and he wasn't even getting the opportunity to really run like he usually does. He was just getting bombarded early. We'll talk about the offensive line later, but Justin Fields looked like a real quarterback to me. There was a couple drops. Muth had a big drop. But when it took time, when they had to run down the field, they were fantastic doing it. And again, just like last week, they knelt at the end when they were, this time they were on the 1 yard line. There was a little over a minute and a half left, and they're kneeling, and that's fine. And people I were with was, why they need a touch? They need to score. They don't need to score, and I get it. But the big thing about it is they could be putting more style points on the board, and it doesn't matter. But Justin Fields looks like the guy that can lead this team, and that's a good stat line. Can you say that again? 27 for 42?
No,
25 for 32.
Oh my gosh, that's 7.
Well, he didn't have an incompletion until there was
it was 10 for 10.
2 minutes left in the first half.
Yeah, and 231 yards?
245.
245 yards. That's a good, when your team wins.
Did I say the 96.0 rating? I don't know if I said that or not.
Yes,
I did not hear it. No, that's a good stat line, but the bigger stat line there, it's an even better stat line because they get that W there. Justin Fields is leading this team, and he really is, and they are not getting... Look, the defense was amazing again, but the defense did not bail them out. So I really don't think they did. I know they poured it on. I know this was a close game late, but scoring 20 points against a Chargers team and Justin Fields looked comfortable, and I think that's the most important part. He looks comfortable in that role. I don't think it's I think he has to get hurt now to really see Russell Wilson.
Yeah, that's going to be an ongoing thing. I'm sure is going to be a huge discussion this week as we go. But Rich, what was your thoughts overall of Justin Fields' play in the passing game?
It was efficient. Okay, he was efficient in this game. And actually, if you really came back and needed to lean on me a little bit and say, what would I liken this to, what I saw from Justin Fields? Justin Fields today reminded me a lot of rookie season Ben Roethlisberger. Steelers ran the ball as much as they, back then the Steelers would run the ball as much as they could. Ben would throw it, 25 to 30 times a game, try not to miss a lot of passes, make enough yardage to make it happen. That's what it was from Justin Fields today. The biggest thing, which I know we'll get to later, was keeping the offense on the field. He was doing a good job of that. Keeping sustaining drives. Just overall, just liked his efficiency and control of the offense.
Yeah, and I did forget to even mention, he also had a rushing touchdown.
Yes.
I can't believe I didn't put that one out there as well. So, but that's a very good point because, the Steelers did have, their touchdown drive in the first half, 7.5 minutes off the clock. The first drive of the second half that was a field goal was almost 6 minutes off the clock. Their other, after the interception, that was one play, but the very next drive after that one, another 6.5 minute drive for a field goal. It was a pretty quick touchdown drive, but when you put 7 on the board, you're not going to complain that they went up too fast. And then, of course, the last 4 minutes and 59 seconds, once they got the ball back, never gave it back and finished taking the knee at the 1 yard line. You can't really do too much of that. Hey, before I don't want to get bogged down too much, I want to hit these super chats. We've got Sean Manahan puts $5 in the tip jar. Thank you, Sean. He says second half team. That's right. And it's not that the first half was bad, but the second half was
dominant.
Dominant's probably the best way to put it. Yep. Then we also got Tom Plays Games. It's Tom Muir. If for those of you looking at old names, $3 into the tip jar because it's $1 per win, 3-0. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. Thank you very much for that, Tom. All right, let's go ahead and keep rolling through with the offense. Let's go ahead to kind of finish up with the passing game a little bit. Let's look at the receivers. Looking at the receivers, leading the way was Calvin Austin III with 95 receiving yards on 4 receptions, targeted 5 times. He had the 55-yard touchdown. Also, we had George Pickens, 5 receptions on 7 targets for 57 yards. I think next was Pat Freiermuth, 4 receptions on 5 targets for 33 yards. Scotty Miller getting involved with a couple big catches, 2 big catches, 31 yards. And that was his only 2 targets. On top of that, you also had Najee Harris, 5 receptions, 16 yards. Yards were tough for him to come by until that very last drive on both, no matter how they got him the ball. Cordero Patterson also had 3 catches for 15 yards on 5 targets. Jalen Warren, 1 catch for -4 yards. That was early on in the game. And Connor Hayward, 1 reception for 2 yards. Brian, overall, what did you think of the Steelers pass catchers today?
I thought it was a much better effort because they were getting more balls thrown to them, and it's not an incomplete. I thought, what was Pickens' just yardage numbers again?
Don't get me started. 57 yards for Pickens.
Okay.
I've, on my 8-leg parlay, which would have won me like $400+, I had Pickens with 60 yards, and he had 57. And I had the Steelers with over 20.5 points, and I missed that. Well.
So Pickens, Dave, was not on an island, and I think that's a big deal here, that he doesn't have to be cool in the gang. There's a gang, too. Scotty Miller with 31 yards, that's a big deal. That's 2 catches, that's a big deal. You have Muth catching balls there. Calvin Austin got an opportunity because I don't know what kind of eye injury it was to Van Jefferson. I didn't realize he came back in the game. Mike Tomlin said that in the post-game press conference. But he came back in, but it was Calvin Austin's game there. He had, 4 receptions, was that?
Who?
Yes, Austin, 4 receptions on 5 targets.
Yeah, that's a pretty good game. So if they get him going, I'm looking at the live chat here, and our good friend, one of our teammates here on Steel Curtain Network, Sean Gurley, Big G, is saying, hey, they don't have to trade for a wide receiver when you get Roman Wilson finally in there with these guys. You're probably in a good position. I really like what I saw from Justin Fields. I really liked what I saw from his wide receivers. Kind of liked what I saw from the offense in general, but the wide receivers were fine. It's, again, when George Pickens does not have to be the man and doesn't have to be the overall star, that's actually a good thing, because now you've got to look. When the Indianapolis Colts are watching tape next week, they've got to look for Calvin Austin III, because he will burn you, because he's that darn fast.
All right, Rich, what do you have here for the pass catchers?
I'll say there, when you throw Calvin Austin III and then throw in, I like to call it that shiftiness of Scotty Miller. I mean, come on, Scotty Miller, 2 catches, a long of 20. So he had catches of 20 and 11 yards. He caught 2 balls, both of which resulted in first downs. Mm-hmm. That's excellent play right there. So when you really look too, the other thing I think you could miss in those pass catchers are those targets to Cordero Patterson, okay? He was not just catching balls being swung out of the backfield. They were putting him in the game and lining him up wide as a receiver. he
Well, they
has
kinda
that.
had to.
I know they
Yeah.
kind of had to, but he has that versatility. And honestly, if you ask me, he's as dangerous or more dangerous as a pass catcher than when you line him up in the backfield and hand him the ball. We saw in the game he could be efficient handing him that ball in the backfield, especially at the end of the game. But I think his real threat is getting him outside against, against corners and safeties. So we'll see where that is moving forward. Honestly, just liked how the ball was spread around. I agree. You get Roman Wilson back in this. You have Van Jefferson healthy again. You got enough guys to get the ball to, besides just George Pickens. When you can look, you got Pickens and Muth. They're probably always going to get the majority of your targets. But when you got these other guys that can step in and get, again, 4 and 5 targets a game and catch 3 or 4 of those and just add some yardage, I think I put in my knee-jerk reaction article, be careful. Teams have to be careful. You could not let Calvin Austin III catch the ball in space.
Yes.
If you let that guy catch the ball in space, you are giving up big chunk plays, as we saw on the touchdown catch, because he caught it in space. You make a guy take a bad angle. Next thing you know, he outruns everybody. He can be dangerous. He is not the type of receiver, though, that's going to get 8, 10, 12 targets a game. He has to be dangerous on that 5 targets a game.
Yeah, and the other thing there, didn't he have the one catch over the middle? There was a decent, like, on
He had a
third
really
down
nice,
conversion.
I think that was a third down conversion too.
Yes, that was another third down conversion, which brings it right in here with Dennis Pavlak giving us $2 into the zip chart that says finally a CA3 sighting. There we go. So one thing I want to say about that with the pass catchers is they stepped up pretty big, especially in the second half. And, it started once again at the end of the first half as the Steelers were trying to get into field goal range. I have no problem with the Steelers going for the 62-yarder with Boz. He had enough distance on it, it looked like. Looked like he just missed a little bit right. But to me, the biggest thing with the wide receivers and Justin Fields with the passing game is they stepped up in the second half because they had to. At halftime, the Steelers had 14 rushing yards. 8 of which were from Justin Fields, 5 of which were on the touchdown run. That's all they had rushing the ball in the first half. Justin Fields did not run the ball in the second half other than 2 kneel downs at the end of the game. So what happens, the Steelers, they have to rely on the pass. Now, did they end up having a turnover in there? Yes, they did. Did the defense step up and get the ball right back for them? Not in a turnover way, but in a 3-and-out way? Absolutely they did. Yep. So what that did more than anything was took potential points off the board because the Steelers were already in Chargers territory when that happened. And yes, it was kind of a fluky bounce around play, but at the same time, it probably wasn't the best decision to try to squeeze that in there. But to me, the receivers and the passing game stepped up in the second half because they had to. And I will say this, Pat Freiermuth, he had 4 receptions for 33 yards on 5 targets. It's that one he didn't have. If he's able to pull that ball in at the end of the first half, the Steelers can get up there and spike it, and they're kicking that field goal, most likely making it and actually having a tie game going into halftime. But hey, what's crazy is that we can talk about these few things here and there that was more points for the Steelers. The interception took away a potential field goal. They didn't have the 62-yarder because they didn't convert on the one pass. They finished the game at the 1-yard line. So even scoring 20 points, there was if it was about running up the score, the Steelers would at least have had 27. That's just how it was. So I know we're not done with the offense. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about the running game and the offensive line. But first, we're going to go ahead and take a break to hear from our sponsors. So stick around. We'll be right back. All right, Steelers fans, here we go. We're going to roll on here, finishing up looking at the Steelers offense from this great win. That's all I can really say about it is just really taking in this win. The Steelers, here's what's crazy. This is where you can spin this in a bunch of different ways when it comes to the Steelers running the football. because the numbers are 31 carries, 114 yards, 3.7 average, and 1 touchdown. Led by Najee Harris, 18 carries for 70 yards, followed by Cordero Patterson, 4 for 33, Justin Fields, 6 for 6 with the touchdown, and Jaylen Warren, 3 for 5. Now, at the end of the game, or after the game, Coach Tomlin said that Jaylen Warren didn't seem to be, I don't think he reported an injury or anything. The way Coach Tomlin said it, Brian will be able to correct me on this because he's the post-game.
I'm sketchy on it because it was weird it was confusing what he said.
I got the impression that he was saying he noticed something with the way he was running the ball, and it made Coach Tomlin want to keep him out of the game. Meaning, I don't know if because Jaylen Warren's probably, if he's going to want to go out there and play. But maybe Coach Tomlin saw something that, I'm worried that he's babying something along, because he mentioned it during the injury portion, which we'll talk about injuries here between the offense and the defense. So that's what was going with Jaylen Warren. You've got to realize that the Steelers, they got 114 rushing yards. Now, you can look at that and say they didn't run the ball very well. They didn't. 80 of those 114 yards were in the fourth quarter. 80 of them were in the fourth quarter. So you can't say that the Steelers ran the ball well all game. But when they got the ball with 5 minutes left, 4 minutes and 59 seconds, they ran the ball down their throats and took it all the way down to the 1 and ran out the clock. So they ran the ball at the end when they were wanting to impose their will on the other team. They struggled with it early on. But to me, I think getting that passing game going opened up and wore down the defense for the Steelers to be able to do that at the end. Brian, what do you have to say about the Steelers running game?
And that's exactly what we were hoping they can finally do, and it took them a while to do it. But once they were able to open up that game and rushing lanes, they were fine. However, there's upheaval on that offensive line. You have a guy.
We'll get to the line.
but they weren't getting. There were no holes to get. There was one play where Najee probably lost about 4 or 5 yards, but there was no. That might have even been on a pass play. I can't even remember, but it was a play where he was just. There's no way he was going to have any room to move because they were in his face. The running lanes were not open for these guys, so it wasn't the rushing attack. But when the rushing attack was able to, find some moves, Najee was running hard. I did not see the numbers on Cordero. I know you said them, but can you tell me what? I have it right here. What,
33 yards, 8.3 average,
4 carries.
Yeah.
And then you throw in that other 15. He's a very valuable running back for them because he is dual purpose for them. And Mike Tomlin talked about that in the post-game press conference. But Najee's going to be Najee. And I know we had this debate last week. I talked about it on Bad Language. Here he is at 70 yards again. That average of 70. Sure, it's going to give you 1,000 for the year if he keeps doing that in a 16-game season. I know a lot of people don't think 1,000 matters. Coach Kevin Smith thinks 1,000 matters because that means that you're able to open up the passing game too. Najee is doing exactly everything that you want out of him. If you ask me, Najee Harris needs a new contract because he is the guy that is making moves for him. He's the guy that is getting those hard yards. And he's a very blue collar back for this team. So I'm thinking that if anybody thinks that Jaylen Warren can carry this team, I think it's Najee or somebody new.
We've got a few months we have to worry about that. That's what's nice.
But you've got to appreciate what you're seeing with Najee Harris right now. This running, hey, they outrushed, like Mike Tomlin said, they outrushed the number 1 rushing team in the league. And they outrushed them by quite a bit, it seems. So as far as that goes, I'm happy with the balance on offense, and the running game had a big part of it, even though it took them a while to get the motor running.
Yeah. Well, and I do want to throw this number out. Part of the reason they were able to do that at the end was second half time of possession, Chargers 9:49, Steelers 20:11. More than a 2-to-1 time advantage of the Steelers, and it was a warm day for Pittsburgh. I mean, I know they're playing LA, but still, that was. You saw. I don't know if you all noticed at halftime Mike Tomlin's press conference or when he had to talk to sideline reporter. I'm like, he's wearing that black shirt and he's sweating. He really is. You can see him glistening in the sunlight. Coach Tomlin was so that was pretty good. So Rich, I didn't ask you yet, did I?
Right. No,
Running game.
running game. Look, the running game was there when it was needed, okay? And you just made the point. The time of possession in the second half makes it so when the Steelers get the ball back with 4:50-some to play, okay, they ran it down their throat. That's when you need to make sure you can and do execute the running. You have the lead. You want to chew the clock, run the football. The Steelers did it.
Yeah. That was the key. The run game came through when you wanted to with like the Mortal Kombat, finish him. When you wanted to finish him, that's what they did. That's how they did it. So I already kind of spoke a little bit to the running game before we got going. So we'll finish it up here with the offensive line overall, whether it's run blocking, pass blocking, either way we want to spin it. Bryan, what do you have to say about the offensive line?
Not pretty, a 2 a.m. line, but they got the job done. They absolutely did. They were able to they engineered 20 points in what really looked like it could have been 27-30. You talked about the Pat Freiermuth drop, that missed field goal. Everybody's excusing a 62-yarder that's missed. Boy, he had some leg on that. Of course, it's going to carry off to the right or the left in situations like that. But the offensive line got it done. Now, the big thing in this game was Spencer Anderson. And Dave, you were the only one able to give me a little bit of an answer on Spencer
there's
Anderson.
even more to it. You want me to go ahead and set this up?
Yeah, please, because okay. I don't know. I need help.
Mason McCormick played a decent amount in this game. Now, there were a couple drives in there. One of the beat reporters said on X, I can't tell if Anderson's limping a little bit. It seemed like they were doing a little bit of a rotation at left guard. They had Spencer Anderson. He was struggling a little bit. He was. Then McCormick came in. Anderson came back. I thought Anderson played better when he came back in. They still switched him some. But Mason McCormick was also the Zach Banner of the Steelers offensive line for a lot. The infamous, come out and do that. There was a lot of plays where I saw Mason McCormick lined up. It was Spencer Anderson to the inside of Dan Moore Jr. and Mason McCormick to the outside of Dan Moore Jr. because they were running the extra offensive linemen, particularly in the second half. And a lot of time it was actually working for them. There was some nice plays with Zach Frazier, pushing it up the middle when they had a few of those, 5, 6, 7 yard runs. So that's kind of what was going on there, Bryan.
All right. So, yeah, thanks for helping me out with that because I didn't know what kind of problem there was. I think it's good to get a look at Mason McCormick. And if you have to throw him in there, he's at least gets that experience. And that Zach Banner role is not, reporting eligible is not a bad thing. I think they have a better offensive coordinator to go ahead and use that extra lineman in there. So, I like the idea of that. Look, I didn't have a problem with James Daniels. I did not have a problem with Broderick Jones that much in this game. There was one play that I hated at the very beginning, but then there was another sack that it looked like the sack that was given up early. It looked like it was Broderick Jones' fault. No, he picked up his guy. There was nobody on the other side helping him out. Hence why Mason McCormick was probably in there, because that's an adjustment it looks like was made. So, I kind of like what the offensive line did, but if I'm being truthful, Tony Romo said this, and I thought for a second, I'm like, Tony Romo's I couldn't believe Tony Romo was saying this already. He's already calling Zach Frazier, who I'm wearing today. I'm wearing Frazier. He's already calling Frazier one of the best centers in the game. And which, look, it's a little too early for that, but you finally got your Humphreys, I guess. The bottom line, you get to keep Freiermuth, and now you have your Humphreys. So Frazier is doing the job on the line. He looks grizzled. He looks like a veteran already. There's no problem with James Daniels. Again, no problem with Dan Moore in this game. Broderick Jones settled down, and he was fine. So the offensive line early looked like it was going to be a long, long day. Yeah. Because that running game, I was telling you at the beginning when we were talking about the running backs, and I did get ahead of myself. I didn't I didn't think the running game was given a chance, but they hunkered down. So good job.
All right, Rich, what do you have to say about the offensive line?
The offensive line. Initially, what I want to say is the offensive line. You want to say, hey, the offensive line was good enough. But actually, I think they were a little better than good enough. Because if you notice something else that was really cleaned up this week was the penalties, especially on the offensive line.
Yes, we're going to get to that.
And the fact that they cleaned up those penalties was good. Now, my issue was, though, that the Steelers were getting behind the chains. This time it wasn't due to the penalties. I'm going to go back and bring this up now on the line because I saw it issue with the line as an extension on the running game. The constant, what I see at least 3 times we ran the toss to Najee that lost 4 to 5 yards.
I don't know that that's a great play against that defense.
Correct. And I don't know if it's that the line's not good at blocking that play. I don't know what it is, but we kept going back to that play, and I really wish we wouldn't have, because the line was doing a pretty good job, and the biggest thing for this offense, I felt, was to face, a lot of difference between facing 2nd and 7 and 2nd and 13.
Yes.
We have to make sure that the line and the play calling has to match up to make sure we gain 3 yards on first down, not lose 3 yards on first down.
Yeah, and losing yardage on a run play is just that, to me, that's disheartening. When you drop back to pass, a sack is bad, but you're even used to an incompletion. My thing is on a run play, you're wanting to at least churn out a yard or two. When you're going to run the ball and you're losing 3 yards, that's disheartening. Now, for me overall with the offensive line, I thought that they were a unit that got significantly better in the second half.
Yep.
They really turned it up in the second half. They had some issues in the first half. The Steelers couldn't run the ball, but also I was really impressed by that Chargers defense and how they came out and were smacking people, even in the open field. Just in general, I was like, this is a legit defense from what I was watching in the first half. But the Steelers wore them down. They wore them down. And I think the offensive line, the pass protection was really there in the second half. I just wanted to double check. Was Justin Fields? I don't think he was sacked once in the second half. Okay. But I thought everything just with all that got better as the game went on with both pass blocking and run blocking. So with that, we have some other before we switch to the defense, we're going to take care of some other things. Rich mentioned was it Rich or Brian mentioned the penalties?
I did.
The Steelers were only penalized 3 times for 15 yards. Now, did they come at a key time? Yes. The first penalty that they had, I was like, this is what happens when you only had 4 wide receivers active for the game and one gets hurt. They had Cordero Patterson filling in at wide receiver, did an admirable job, but it's something like that where is he going to get the right alignment every time?
Yeah.
There was one time he should have been on the line. He wasn't. That was their first penalty. They had what was the other one that they had? I know it was a Keanu Benton delay of game. Apparently, you're not allowed to switch which hand you have down when you shift on defense because it can confuse the offense. Apparently, I got to look that up because that's what they were saying.
Yeah, that was. Ugh.
I mean, I'm not saying it was a bad call. I'm just saying that's not something you see very often. So I got to look into that a little bit more.
Typically, I'm sorry, Rich.
I was just you get it, and then I'll.
All right. Typically, that play, that call on defensive delay of game, because my friends were asking, how on earth can you get a delay of game? It's like if you touch the ball, or if you do the fake hut, or if you do something that which we've seen the Steelers do that in the last couple of years as well, and get called for it once or twice before it finally went away. But I actually thought that's what it was. There's different things you can do for the other delay of game is when you pick up the ball and you throw it or you delay the refs from getting that ball down, especially late in the game, which this wasn't the situation. But yeah, that was definitely a penalty on Benton there because you aren't allowed to do that switch. You can look it up, and I'd like to hear a little more clarity, but I think that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, because at first, someone just said in the live chat, Romo said it was a fake hut. He didn't know. And then the official, who was the rules guy for CBS came in and explained it. So
Steratory.
Yep. And then I know someone else said earlier about McCormick was at left tackle. He wasn't at left tackle. He was at jumbo tight end. He was an additional lineman. So that was one thing that was kind of important to do. The Steelers, led the time of possession 33-51 to 26-09 for the whole game. They doubled up the Chargers in first downs, 20-10. Jeff Hartman should finally be happy. The Steelers were 50% third down conversion rate. They were 7 of 14 while holding the Chargers to 3 of 11. And the Steelers completed 78% of their passes. Also, one other thing that I want to bring up, I want to make sure I quote myself well because I put this out there on X, and that is the Steelers won their first game with a negative turnover differential since Week 7 of the 2020 season when they beat the Titans 27-24 in Tennessee when they were -3. The Steelers, it had been 21 games, both regular season and playoffs, of having a negative point differential and not winning the game. They were 0-20-1. So they finally did that. They turned the ball. They didn't have any takeaways, but they were able to do that. I was thinking there was one other thing here I wanted to look at, but I can't remember what that was. If I'm missing anything other than
that's a good thing, though. I mean, that's good to get that out of there because we were talking about that on the preview that they are going to turn the ball over, but it's not in a spectacular way.
It's overcoming it.
Yeah, you overcome that. It's a good thing to actually get one of those out of the way and not get bit by it. And they did not get bit by it. In fact, anytime there's a pinball ball up in the air, anything could happen like that. So I don't find that. I find a defender making a play, and that could come down into anybody's hands.
Yes, exactly. So before we go to the defense here's another thing we got to do. Steeler fan 69, $5 into the tip jar. Got to bring the dad jokes like he does on Let's Ride. Says another joke. My wife said last night she was leaving me this morning because of my obsession with Wham. I said, wake me up before you go. So
I wonder if she said it loud or if he said it in a careless whisper.
Could be a careless whisper. Well, Brian, what do you call a spider with 10 eyes?
A spider with 10 eyes.
It's a spider. Okay, so there we go. So just thought I'd get that. That's one that doesn't work to type, so I had to go.
Where's the Wham reference?
It doesn't matter. I didn't need the Wham reference. Here we go. Steelers Nation Australia. Marky D down under $10 dingo dollars says, "Good day, fellas. Longtime listener, ex-podcaster, huge Steelers fan. One message in the words of Dak Prescott." Here we go.
I think people said that long before Dak Prescott. But you're never X around here. You're always a part of the family there, Marky D.
Oh, that's a little bit too much there. So, all right, so let's dive over to the defense. There's some things that I want to put out there with you guys before we get going of just some overall numbers. Okay, I know I'll have these in my By the Numbers article that'll be coming out tomorrow morning at steelcurdnetwork.com. Make sure you're checking that out. Rich has already referenced his knee-jerk reaction article. It is up and on the website. Later tonight, we'll have game balls, things like that, things of that nature. But if you look in the second half, the Los Angeles Chargers, and I've been doing pretty good at calling them Los Angeles, they had one first down at -5 total yards. One first down at -5 total yards. The Steelers' offense in the second half had 14 first downs and 233 net yards. So let's go ahead and dive into these defensive numbers. I got to make sure I actually get them back for the entire game and not just the first half. But let's talk about the pass rush. The Steelers got home for 5 sacks. 5 sacks. Oh, that was the other thing I wanted to talk about before we jump to the defense. Injuries. Okay, this is a good time to talk about it because Alex Highsmith left the game just before halftime with a groin injury. Van Jefferson had an eye injury, but he came back. Corey Trice must have been on a special teams play or something early in the game. Hurt his, was it hamstring?
Hammy. Yep.
Where he was out and he was able to come in. So when Dante Jackson, kind of got his arm twisted and had to come out of the game, it was James Pierre, who just came back to the Steelers on the practice squad this week, had to go in for 2 snaps on defense. I'm trying to think of any other. Am I missing any of the other injuries other than though we mentioned Jaylen Warren? Or did I get them all?
The big one.
The big one was Highsmith.
Was the groin for Highsmith.
Yeah.
I'm checking my Tomlin notes. That's all that he really brought up. It just seemed like there's a whole heck of a lot of them, but it seems like we should be listing more. But it seemed like we were getting a breaking news Slack saying that someone else is going to the. Bert Lawton was killing me today.
Yes,
someone else is going into the locker room. It's like, Bert, shut up, Bert.
Yep. Yeah, but at the same time, we also have to realize that the Chargers lost Joey Bosa on the first snap. He tried to come in a little bit more and then was out. They also lost Justin Herbert was knocked out of the game.
It was Van.
What did I say?
Van, who came back out and went out and came back.
Did I say a different Jefferson? I messed up, didn't I?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember if I said
Jefferson. I hope you. I'll have to go back and listen to see if you said Van.
I might have said Justin.
You said Justin.
You know what? No, I wasn't trying to correct you though. I was just saying that. I thought you missed him altogether.
For the Chargers, even Joe Alt left the game at the end, but the Chargers never got the ball back to know if he would have come back or not. So I never paid attention to that. But the Steelers in the second half, the Steelers as a whole, they had 5 sacks, and they all came in the second half, led by 2 from Nick Herbig filling in for Alex Highsmith. He had 2 sacks. TJ Watt had 1. Landon Roberts had 1. And Cam Hayward had a nice sack that they almost could have given TJ Watt another half a sack on that one, which would have put him to 100. But really, Cam, he was going to go down whether TJ Watt was there to put his hand on him or not. So they probably gave that to him in the proper way. Brian, what did you think of the Steelers pass rush today?
Phenomenal. And I had the feeling that when they were, look, Herbert's going to get the ball out early. He's going to get out quick. They were so close to him a few times. And in the second possession where he was able to flip it out and get himself out of trouble. But you kind of knew that the Steelers were going to get to that ankle. And it didn't matter who was going to come in. It didn't matter if Herbert stayed in. That defense was on task. The pass rush was so dominant that it helped every other phase of the game. But again, I want to make sure that one of my comments earlier, I said the defense didn't bail the Steelers out, and I still stand to that. They did not bail the Steelers out. They controlled this game, but they didn't cover up for that pimple that was about to pop.
Yeah, and I did also forget to say that there were 7 quarterback hits was also the other thing. The two that weren't sacks actually both came in the first half, so that was pretty interesting. So, all right, Rich, what did you think of the Steelers pass rush?
One of those other quarterback hits could be accounted for because it was almost sack number 3 on the day for Nick Herbig.
Yeah.
Okay, because I think we brought up before, the almost interception by Patrick Queen. That ball really should have never been thrown. I thought Herbig had the sack on that play. Herbert gets away, throws it down, and then Queen almost picks it off. The first, honestly, for the pass rushing, especially in the second half, actually the defense in the whole in the second half, I think back to one of my favorite Saturday Night Live characters from Adam Sandler, and that would be Cajun Man. Domination.
Yeah, that was a pretty dominant performance.
Yeah.
It was defense really. I mean, the pass rush, they were getting home in the second half. To me, I think the Steelers didn't have sacks in the first half because I feel like they were selling out to stop the run.
Yes, the Steelers said we are not going to go for those sacks early in the game because what we're wanting to do is stop the running attack. When you're coming in against a team that's averaging 158 yards a game on the ground, the first thing you got to do is stop the run. Stop the run, stop the run. Then you eventually, by the second half, got to them to the point where you knew they were going to have to pass the ball more. Then it's time to, back to one of my favorite commercials ever, release the hounds.
Release the hounds. Jerry Seinfeld, right?
Yes, it was.
All right.
So
yeah. Because for me, I thought that was a pretty important thing that they adjusted what they were doing and saying, hey, we're doing a good job with the run. We're going to get to the secondary here in just a minute, but let's get a little bit more pressure and make Justin Herbert uncomfortable. I mean, Cam Hayward was right in his face on the one that it was third down. They were throwing it into the end zone. It ended up being incomplete. And they had to kick the field goal. So they were making him uncomfortable, but they really just needed to finish it off, which they were able to do in the second half. But then if you turn around and let's look at the secondary, as you know, and the pass defense, I guess you'd say more than just the secondary, but the pass defense for the Steelers. On the day, the Steelers only had one pass defense, and that was the Patrick Queen almost interception. That was it. They did have the breakdown, or I'd say early, but it was really the third drive of the game. But the first four drives, two by each team, went by so fast. It didn't seem like it was later in the game, that it was pretty early. They had the breakdown, which did give up the 27-yard touchdown. But when it came to the passing game, in all, the Chargers were 14 of 20 for 149 passing yards, one passing touchdown, and like I said, they gave up 5 sacks for minus 42 yards. Heineke was 2 for 2 for 24 yards. Herbert was 12 of 18 for 125 yards. When it came to the receivers, the top receiver, there was 2 players tied for the top receiver for the Chargers. You had Quentin Johnson, who had 2 for 44, which included the 27-yard touchdown, and you had Ladd McConkey 3 for 44 on 6 targets. Dobbins added 3 receptions for 10 yards. Will Dissly was 3 receptions for 19. Hayden Hurst 2 for 15, and Simi Fehoko 1 for 17. So, Brian, in all, what did you think of the Steelers' pass defense?
It was there. They were, again, I want to reiterate what Big Bro just said. They were not going after the pass rush. They were going all out to stop that run game, which they did, but that leaves some guys open. And when you're selling out, that's leaving Ladd McConkey open. But he had 44 yards, and Quentin Johnston had 44 yards, and that's it. And and those guys are talented. Quentin Johnson had 2 touchdowns last week. Ladd McConkey is a very solid. It is going to be one of the better slot receivers in the game, and when he gets going, he's going to be the guy that people pick up in fantasy, because he's going to be that slot receiver that does a lot of damage and catches a lot of balls. So all I'm saying is, in the second half, they didn't have to worry about it, because that passing game, even though they were trying to pass, nothing was there the entire time. Everybody looked good. Deshaun Elliott, again, is becoming that guy that he's a Robin, but he's a Robin who has Batman aspirations. And he really complements Minkah Fitzpatrick so well. You've got so much talent because of a guy like that. and a lot of people overlooked him in the offseason when he was brought in. There were some people excited about him. I wasn't that excited about Ryan Clark in 2006, but I wasn't giving him away in 2007. And it's the same thing with a guy like Deshaun Elliott. But you need those puzzle pieces, and you've got a really good one. There was nothing that I was worried about in the second half of that game when I saw how the pass rush was getting to him. And then the fact that even if Herbert would have stayed in the game, which I know he did not, but if he would have, I wouldn't have been worried either because they were clicking on all cylinders, Dave.
Yeah. Rich, Steelers pass defense.
There was a slight stretch in that game where they had me very worried. The breakdown on the touchdown throw, followed up into the next drive, they seemed to be giving up a lot of yards. Once the defense, you had that pressure from Cam to force that miss on third down, didn't give up the touchdown. From that point on in the game, the pass defense was very good. But like I said, there was about a 6-7 minute stretch in the game where I was very worried about it. And it really, I think in the end there just came down to the Chargers called the right plays for the defense the Steelers were in. And they got a couple of those. And then the adjustments were made, and it was taken away.
Yeah.
Yeah, can I jump on that, Dave?
Yeah.
Sure.
I love what Rich says right there because here's the deal. I thought Jim Harbaugh or Greg Roman or whoever you want to talk about that was responsible for this, I thought the Chargers coached this game very well. They didn't have the players, but they had a good game plan coming into this game, and everything that they did, the Steelers adjusted to and did not let them have what they wanted. They had the plan. They had a winning plan, the Chargers did. They just couldn't execute against the Steelers because, one, they didn't have the guys. Two, even if they had the guys, the Steelers weren't letting them have the guys.
Yeah, someone who I don't think normally we wouldn't bring up and talk about mentioned, but I thought Terrell Austin coached a very good game in this game because there was that little stretch like I was talking about there. I even put it in my knee-jerk reaction. I was like, hey, wait a minute. I thought we were supposed to be good against Greg Roman offenses. What's going on here? And then next thing you know, shut it down.
Yeah. Yeah, that was an extremely cold take. Did not age well with the second half that the Steelers had. Yeah,
even at the end of the first half of what the Steelers were doing, it was like I honestly think it was like I could see Coach Austin being over there. Oh, Greg Roman throwing something at me I haven't seen before. Huh. Well, maybe we'll just do this then.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also have to say, how fitting did it, or how much did it remind you, although it was going in the opposite direction, of the Chargers throwing a Hail Mary there at the end of the first half. It was in the end zone and batted around, but they didn't come down with it. Just had to do the Jim Harbaugh reference there.
You know what? On that play, the Chargers had the players in the position to make the play. They just didn't make it.
Yeah. Well, honestly, if you look at it, when I didn't notice it live, but I noticed on the replay, do you know who had the best eye and line and hands on that ball? Who had the best track on the ball, I guess I should say, was Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Yes.
He went up with his hand in the right spot. He was tracking the ball better than anybody else that was in that group going to make that play. So let's go ahead and finish this off here with the run defense. Well, before we do, let's go ahead and do this one. Wilson Pava, $4.99 into the tip jar. Thank you very much. Says TJ Watt for MVP. Watt and his bro are legit MVP snubs. This defense is going strong, and TJ is the soul of this team. That's why we're 3-0. They had the MVP chant for Watt going on at the stadium, and I would say, yeah, that all sounds great, but we are only 3 games into the season. A lot of things can change. So, but the way it's going so far, it's really difficult for defensive players to win MVP. But if that's going to be the case, let's just continue to build that resume. So let's go ahead and look at the run defense here, just to wrap a bow on all this. The Steelers held the Chargers who were averaging, 197.5 rushing yards per game?
I thought it was 158.
Oh, no, what they were averaging? No, it was almost 200.
Was it?
Yeah. It was something crazy. Maybe I'm off, but maybe I'm not right.
No, that's all right. You talk.
61 yards. 61 yards on 20 carries, a 3.1 average. J.K. Dobbins was averaging 150, is what I think.
Oh, that's what it was. Yep, it was
Yes.
Dobbins was averaging that. Yes.
15 carries, 44 yards, 2.9 average. Gus Edwards, who Brian said he didn't even remember seeing him in the game, 3 carries, 9 yards, 3.0 average. He had a long of 6. Dobbins had a long of 13. And then Darius Davis?
Demario.
This one. Or whatever.
Is it?
No, this said
No, it's Darius.
DERIUS.
It's Darius.
Oh, Demario's the linebacker. Sorry.
I couldn't see him. I guess I needed to say, Darius. Anyway, he had
Nice.
1 carry for 8 yards. So that was it. So Brian, what did you think of the Steelers' run defense?
Najee outran them 70-53. 61 when you throw in Darius Davis. Wow. J.K. Dobbins always has a home run, and usually has a home run against the Steelers. He didn't have that big carry. If you get away with a 13-yarder and that's it from J.K. Dobbins, then yeah, you shut him down, because the problem with him has always been his health, but he slashes offenses almost. I would like to see just his average on the games that he is healthy and playing, because the guy is absolutely amazing. He's Bo Jackson to me. If he was a guy that could be healthy, he would be one of the great running backs, and he'd still be in Baltimore, unfortunately. So maybe it's a good thing that he's no longer in Baltimore, but J.K. Dobbins is that damned good. And the Steelers shut him down. He was just another guy today.
Rich, run defense.
I'll just go back to Cajun Man again.
Yeah.
Domination.
Yeah, that was
it was. Look, the Steelers came in with the game plan of that the Chargers are a running team. We have a really good run defense. We are not going to let them run the ball on us, and they didn't.
Yeah.
The key thing being there, and they didn't. How many times have we seen the Steelers then turn around against a team like that and give up a bunch? Nope. They were like, nope, not this time. No. That's your strength. We're taking it away. And then they took it away.
Yeah, and I'll just say this. I've been saying it for a long time. I talked about it all offseason for all the people that wanted to complain and everything else and said he's old, he's whatever. Cam Hayward is an absolute friggin' beast. He just does so much in the run game. And he had a sack today as well. And, and adding and some pressure there. So it's not just about the run, but my goodness, Cam Hayward is a friggin' beast. So for those of you that are like, why do they want to sign? Well, first of all, the Steelers made out like a bandit on that deal to Cam Hayward, that they don't owe him any money beyond this year that they didn't already owe him for this year anyway. And they still have him under contract for 2 more years at a very good price for the way he's played through 3 games. He has been dominant. He is El Capitan. I'm so glad to be repping the jersey. That's what I do every game day. He's just such a big difference maker with this Steelers run defense as a team, even if he's not the one making the plays. He's the one who has to gobble up double teams. You can't block Cam Hayward with just one guy while you're running the football and think you're going to be able to run the football. That's all I'm going to have to say about that. So with that, just some overall things. Do the Steelers, I don't want to ignore it. I know we're running late here, but people were talking about it early. Is there a quarterback controversy, or are the Steelers just going to kind of keep doing it? There's just no reason to bring back a quarterback that isn't 100% mobile, even if he's well enough to play. You think the Steelers are even looking to have to push Russell Wilson back? What do you think, Brian?
No, because we talk about this all the time. We like to bring up Cordell Stewart in situations like this. Justin Fields has a better arm than what Cordell had, and we're seeing that. And he's also bailing them out when they need to bail him out, but he's not quick to do it. He's still trying. He's a guy that you can continue to try to make a quarterback, but he's definitely very good at knowing when to go for it and knowing when to just stay at home. And so I feel like you do have the guy that you've got to continue this experiment until you have to go ahead and sit him down, one, because of injury, or two, because he's proving ineffective. But right now, you don't mess with a winning formula, and there's a winning formula right now. It might not be the formula that you think is going to break the bank, but 3-0 is the bank I want to go to.
Yeah. Rich, thoughts on the quarterback situation here before we hit our final thoughts?
I agree with you. Don't necessarily make a change just to make a change. If I'm Omar Khan and my phone rings, I'm listening.
Yeah.
But he holds all the cards. Omar holds the cards. If his phone rings, he holds the cards. I'll trust him to do what he thinks he should do, and take it from there.
I also think he would do what Russ would want to.
I think so, but he's not. He's not going to be like Denver and just give Russ away.
Boy, I bet you they wish they.
Denver
did well today. I have to admit that doesn't look like such a pushover win that the Steelers had last week when they beat down Tampa Bay today. So that was surprising.
Look, the Steelers. The Steelers could ride through this season and keep Justin Fields in a starting quarterback position. I know Russ wouldn't be super happy about it, and they could ride through. Look, at some point during the season, you would imagine Russ would have to play because quarterbacks just don't make it through a season anymore.
We were saying the same thing about Fields when it came to Russell Wilson.
Correct.
Before the season started. So it still applies both ways.
Yes. But honestly, if I'm Omar Khan and someone like the Dolphins or somebody like that are picking up the phone and checking to see if this, hate to go all Bob Barker, Drew Carey here, but, if the price is right, then,
But wait, let me ask you this, because I got distracted by getting blasted on the live chat for my Cordell comments. But are you talking about listening for Waddle? I'm not Waddle. Excuse me. Listening for Wilson, or listening for Fields?
Someone suggested for Waddle
for Wilson.
In the live chat. So
Well,
the reason
Waddle's not happening.
No.
Let me throw this in real quick. Cordell, yes, he had a great arm. He could have hit water if he fell out of a boat, though, and we saw it because he had no vision. So we're not getting into that conversation. I'm not smoking anything. Yes, he had a good arm. He had horrible accuracy. Go ahead and look back. Wax poetically about the past, but you've got a more accurate quarterback in Justin Fields, is what I was trying to say.
All right. So, but now when it comes to, I wasn't even talking about shopping. That's a whole different thing. You're not going to shop an injured quarterback. The question is, we're dealing with hypothetical because it is what Steelers Nation wants to do. And I don't blame you there, but I also see Coach Tomlin, the whole idea of, why are we even asking who it would be when we only have the option of one of these guys? We'll answer that question. So in other words, and the thing is, because things can change until you get the other one. If Justin Fields would have gone out there and totally stunk it up today, then you would have considered, when Russ comes back. But that's not what happened. Justin Fields is continuing to play. I think this is a situation that's going to get the most out of him. So as far as I'm saying is just kind of leave it there, that Russ is just back there but not quite ready, and see what's going to happen as we get there. But guys, this was exciting this week. This was so much fun. For as much as Steelers fans might have been down last week and it was just kind of an ugly win and they didn't do anything in the second half, I kept saying the Steelers offense, what you're going to have to see is what are they going to do when they have to do something? And did they really get pushed to where they were down by a lot? No. They answered whenever the Chargers scored, the Steelers answered mostly. Because think about it. the Chargers scored their touchdown. The Steelers came back on the very next drive and scored a touchdown. Then the Chargers got a field goal. The Steelers, they did end up punting on the next play, but got it back, and then they missed a field goal right before that. They never got down. They never got down by more than one score. And this was a time where the offense picked up the defense. When the defense gave up that touchdown, the offense came right back without even having a first down in the game and answered with a 13-play, 70-yard drive with a touchdown that was almost 7.5 minutes long. So to me, the offense really complimented the defense a lot in this game, showed what they can do. If you still don't like 20 points, you can see where the Steelers had the opportunity to do more, especially, I mean, anytime you're taking a knee on the 1-yard line, you got to think to yourself, that's 7 more points this team could have had if they felt like it. So to me, I feel rejuvenated after this. I feel that this was the Steelers' biggest test of the season so far. And who knows, we haven't seen, Atlanta plays what tonight? Maybe that might even be a more impressive win. My goodness, the Broncos turned around win, but this was a 2-0 team that was running the ball at will and had the only team that had given up less points than the Steelers. They'd only given up 13 points in 2 games. So the Steelers beat that just themselves this week. So you've got to remember that. So for those, Rich, I'll ask this question before I turn it to Bryan for his final thoughts. Steelers, you asked me on last week, are they pretenders or contenders? Short answer.
No, we have to hold. No, I'm holding that for Tuesday. No, I have the answer, and I've had to hold myself back like 2 or 3 times from getting into it here today. But I'm holding back because I have some things we talked about on the Scobro show last week that I think we will need to revisit and talk about.
Yes, and we will continue to do that. Bryan, you want to hit us with your closing thoughts here to finish up?
Yeah, a great win. And look, only scoring 20 points, it doesn't matter because this is a different style team. This is kind of, when we talked about last week in the second half of that game where the offense didn't seem to be doing anything, they were protecting a lead and it was in their own style. There's a lot of coaches that would have punched that in to give their players stats, to go ahead and if you're the other Harbaugh on the other coast, you're not only are you punching it in, you're probably onside kicking just to embarrass it. I know the onside kick rules are different, but you're doing whatever you can to embarrass because that's just the style of play there. The Steelers don't do that. They don't care about the scoreboard. They care about the W. And that's kind of all I really care about here. As far as pretenders and contenders, well, that's a Scobro show thing, and I wasn't born into that gene pool, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. But I'm just going to say for right now, I'm pretty ecstatic that 2 teams that haven't played are the only AFC teams with no losses, and who knows, they might lose. But right now, one of the best teams statistically, no, but one of the best teams in the win and loss record, and that's all that counts in the American Football Conference, is your Pittsburgh Steelers. So it doesn't matter how you bake the cake, it's how good it tastes at the end. And I tell you what, I've got frosting all over my shirt because I'm just shoveling it in, and I am loving it.
All right, big bro, final thoughts. Now remember, this isn't Scobro, so don't finish it like you normally do.
I know. Final thoughts here. Hey, nice home opener for the Steelers. Okay, we've had some ugly home openers of late. It was nice to have a really good one. Dave, I'm sitting there thinking about this game while it was going on. Our brother-in-law and our nephew were at the game. And I'm sitting there.
Birthday. Happy birthday, Jamie.
Yep, happy birthday.
Go get that W.
That's right. Could you really, this game reminded me some of a game, just felt like a game you and I would have been at together, Dave, because we get some of those games where it's tight for a little, it was one of those tight for a little while and you start to worry about it. And really, as it got into the second half more and more, the pressure just was coming off and coming off and coming off, and you just felt it was inevitable it was going to be a win. That was nice. That was finally not a Pepto-Bismol game.
Not a Pepto-Bismol.
Yeah. Was worried in the first half where it was going, but it did not take long in the second half to figure out, nope, the Steelers, they've got this figured out. They're going to take care of business. And they took care of business.
They most certainly did. And as Wilson Pava says here with $1.99 into the tip jar, says winning is the only way to contend, and we are winning. That's exactly right. Hey, this is what we said, that the Steelers needed to do well early in the season. Now, are we going to get into it this week where I'm a little bit concerned about the Steelers having a letdown game? Yeah. Is week 4 one that always scares me because of the numbers? Yeah. But you know what? That's something to worry about later in the week. Right now, I'm going to enjoy this Victory Sunday, this nice Victory Monday. I can't wait to hear from Jefferson Hartman on my phone when he finally turns it on after he can get through the game, so I can break it down with him and see how much fun he could enjoy it. He's going to be bummed that he missed this one live because it was a really good one. Make sure you are checking out all of our podcasts here at the Steel Curtain Network. We will have our normal lineup all week. Correct, Brian? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that
yes.
We're on schedule. We're on schedule. We're hitting our stride, much like the Steelers are hopefully hitting their stride with that. And as I mentioned before, make sure you check out steelcurtainnetwork.com. Knee-jerk reactions already up there. We'll have game balls out later after I get that figured out. Once the show is over, tomorrow we'll have some lots of breakdown. Like I'll have my numbers. We'll have some post-game sound. We'll have our typical stuff that we have there that we'll continue to bring you on the website. Whoo! It was a great win, a great time, just a fun game to be a Steelers fan is what I have to say. Got to keep it rolling now into week 4, and as I have to say to finish these out, go Steelers. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Steel Curtain Network. Get it.
Everybody else gets a little tight.